Welcome back. Let's start by taking a look at what races are considered nonpartisan and what state statute says about them. Here on the Suncoast, it includes all judge positions, school board, and certain commission races. According to Florida the statutes, no preference to political party affiliation can appear on the ballot for nonpartisan office. A candidate for nonpartisan office is prohibited from taking campaigns based upon party affiliation. Yet several candidates this year openly discussed their ties to local parties. So is it time to drop the pretense? And joining us for more on this topic is Kevin Griffith, the vice chair of the Sarasota County Democratic Party, and Jack Brill, the vice chair of the Republican Party of Sarasota. Gentlemen, the reason why we're doing this show is because I was there at that Tiger Bay luncheon when you all started talking about this, arguing about this. And Jack, I got to be honest, because I was leaning back in my chair because I have covered this county, I've covered Hillsborough, Miami, and in my opinion, there are no such things as nonpartisan races. The parties are always involved in some way, one form or another. So who are we kidding?
I personally agree. There isn't any such thing as a nonpartisan race, but we do try and follow the guidelines, and for the city commission, the school board, obviously the judicial, we have stuck to that in the past, but we've also given individual support to candidates, but not as a full game on. Here's a race already. So, but to the point we talked about over at Tiger Bay is the pretense of it. Depending on who files, how many candidates, we should be involved.
Kevin, has it always been as simple as the parties backing candidates informally, unofficially, and not being involved when it comes to money or resources?
No. I mean, I think there is some truth to the matter that in a nonpartisan race, the parties may not play as large of a role. In certain races, I mean, every race has a different dynamic. But we do have rules, internal rules as a party that say if there are two Democrats vying for a seat, we cannot choose one over the other. So, for example, in this city commission election, there are already 3 Democrats who have announced for the March election. So the Democrats will not formally be endorsing anyone in the March election, nor will we be backing. We have to be fair. I mean, transparency and fairness is part of the Democratic Party.
But that's usually the situation if it is a primary, and Republicans are not usually going to pick between 2 Republicans and Democrats the same. But it's been my observation that when it comes to these nonpartisan races, the parties are organizing in terms of canvassing, knocking on doors, and making phone calls. You know who the Democrat, you know who the Republican is in these races.
And the voters do too. And I can say unequivocally, last summer in the school board races, we stayed out of it. We had a lot of internal discussions about it because we had 2 Republicans. And that was something that we...
But obviously, that's not what the candidate was saying.
Well, no, and I'm going to respectfully disagree with Caroline very strongly because she's wrong in saying that, we supported Teresa over Caroline. That just didn't happen.
Well, I would say in that race, you had the state committee man for the Republican Party sending out an email blast in support of one candidate over the other, not Caroline Zucker, but her opponent.
As an individual person, and the state committee person is not beholden to the county party. They're a separate part of the process.
I want to make sure that we have this clear. Anybody could contribute to anyone's campaign, but can a party contribute to a candidate in a nonpartisan campaign?
It's my understanding that it is. Now, I'd have to review the state statute, but yes, it was my understanding that they can. The issue, what nonpartisan race means is that on the ballot, their party affiliation is not listed, and that candidate cannot go door to door, knock on the door and say, hey, Alan, I'm Democrat Kevin Griffith running for this nonpartisan race. They can't use their party affiliation as a way to gain votes. They also cannot put it on their literature, which happens in partisan races.
But what they do is they say, I have been endorsed by so-and-so and so-and-so. You see who their friends are. You see, what party they're affiliated, and everybody knows.
And 90% of the voters, when you go up and say I'm running for a position, they'll ask you, are you a Republican or a Democrat? And that, so the voters want to know.
In city races and some of these races, issues matter. In all races, issues matter more. But if people don't know, the party affiliation gives them an idea.
And I want to get to that very issue, but we are just getting started. We have much more with our guests coming up, but when we return, we'll have to take a look at your full forecast. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing races here on the Suncoast that are called nonpartisan but have been influenced by political parties in recent years. Our guests tonight are the vice chairs of the Sarasota County Local Party, Democrat Kevin Griffith and Republican Jack Brill. Here is why this is not just inside baseball, because whether you're talking about the school committee or the city commission, there are partisan issues that come out. I remember when Caroline Zucker and Teresa Mass were debating at the trapezoid. The issue of transgender bathrooms came up, and that's not a strictly partisan issue, but pretty much, and you can often tell the difference between the Democrat and the Republican based upon that issue. So isn't it worthwhile knowing whether the candidate for the school board is a Republican and Democrat?
I personally, as I mentioned earlier, there isn't any such thing as a nonpartisan race. So I think it would be good to have all races. I'm sure there are many people who disagree, but as long as the voters can ask what party affiliation, then they're going to have the right to know. As Kevin mentioned earlier, can't be on the ballot in the way it is now, and they can't introduce themselves. In fact, they can't even say, and there was a violation of this summer in the Republican Party where a nonpartisan candidate said, hey, I'm a Republican and I'm running for X board or X position. So there are rules for that, especially for the candidates, but the parties can help out. But I can tell you, as I mentioned, in a strict primary, when we have two Republican candidates, we stay out. And you've got the same thing, coming up with the city commission race.
Alan, let me give you an example. It's not a foregone conclusion that the constitutional offices in the county, so that's tax collector, board of county commissioners, clerk of courts, that those are partisan races. For example, in Orange County, which by the way is Democrat-leaning county, those races, your party affiliation doesn't appear on the ballot. Here in Sarasota, the Republicans have a registration advantage over the Democrats, and so it's to the Republicans' advantage that those constitutional offices show a person's party affiliation. The Democratic Party of Sarasota, like they do in Orange County, would be for our county charter to be changed so that party affiliation doesn't appear anywhere on the ballot for any of the constitutional offices. And the reason that's important is because then it becomes about the issues. And issues ultimately are what the voting public should care about. And it would put the onus on the Republican and Democratic Party to then go out and educate the voters on who from which party is the candidate from their party.
So this is the question. Whether, as we said, who do we think we're kidding? None of these races are nonpartisan truly, or would we have better campaigns and better candidates if everything truly was nonpartisan?
Well, this is Tiger Bay all over again in our conversation, but the other offices you mentioned, those are part of the Constitution of Sarasota County, so they're not going to change.
Well, they could change because the Republican Party could put that charter. They control the charter at the Charter Review Committee. They could put that on.
And we had 5 of our candidates reelected this year,
and put it to the voters. And I think the voters would actually support removing the party identification.
We're going to respectfully disagree on that one, like we did before.
I guess I don't understand, Jack, because when we were at the Tiger Bay luncheon, you were asking Kevin to take a pledge and not have party involvement in the city commission and the school board races. So if that's the case, why wouldn't you be supportive of changing the county charter?
Well, Kevin gave the answer. We've made that same request for the last number of years in the spirit in the city races to stay out of it. The Democratic Party continues to support the candidates. So, we're going to have to look at supporting candidates also.
But again, the reason why that's out there is because the Republicans tend to do better based upon party affiliation across the county, but in races where they're nonpartisan, where your party affiliation doesn't appear on the ballot, the Democrats actually tend to do better, or at least outperform where their party affiliation is listed.
The only time that happens, though, is in the city of Sarasota races in March, when you got a total of 8,000
and judge.
Well,
and my point about this
votes.
is,
it's such an undervote when you win races with 17% because it's not a November election. That just totally skews the mix of everything.
But hold on, my point about this is that it doesn't have to be partisan. In Orange County, where the Democrats have the advantage, it was the Democrats that helped change that charter so that the party affiliation doesn't appear on the ballot. So, because it should be about the issues. So it could be done by the Republicans, and there are some in the Charter Review Committee who did support that.
But, you know, there are Democrats and Republicans who want to support Democrats and Republicans for office, so why take that away from them?
And there are a lot more folks that think that way than you realize. You know,
but you're not taking it away from it. It puts the onus, it puts the burden on the party, and I accept that burden, to go educate those voters on who is the Democrat and who is the Republican. This last cycle in the county commission race, Fred Atkins versus Mike Moran, Mike Moran sent out literature that said Republican Mike Moran, flip it on the other side, Democrat Fred Atkins. I mean, they were doing that. They were identifying the voters. So all it would do is put the burden on the Democrat and Republican Party to educate the voters, as opposed to it just being there on the ballot.
Just an example of how confusing this can all be. We talked about money and whether the parties can contribute directly to candidates in nonpartisan races. There was a city council race in Tampa this year where the Republican Party contributed to a candidate, a complaint was filed, and the candidate had to give the money back. The point being, this is so confusing, the parties don't even know what the rules are.
There is an element of that, because it does create some challenges, and I think you'll agree with me on that side of it.
Absolutely, and what it comes down to is transparency, because instead of the party donating to that candidate and then filing and having that, the parties will support that candidate and they'll put it on their own filing, and so it has to be people who know what they're doing to go look to see how that money is being spent, and it's really a transparency issue.
I guess the bottom line here is I don't know if I ever seen a period in my lifetime where things have not been more partisan in our lives and our politics. So the likeliness of just going to really living up to nonpartisan races doesn't even seem to be a possibility at this stage.
Go ahead.
Well, but if you look at the school board race, when you say this era of bipartisanship or partisanship, the Democrats endorsed or at least supported Caroline Zucker, the Republican.
You endorsed.
The Republican, because we care about our community and our education. So it was about the issues. I mean, we went across the aisle and supported someone who was a registered Republican, not because we liked that she was a Republican, but that we liked what she stood for on some of the issues.
Well, you're talking about the party's responsibility, but it also, if these races are nonpartisan, doesn't that also put the onus on the voters, many of which, I got to say, are lazy, because they go towards whether it's a Republican or Democrat, and that's all they want to know.
But I don't think, I take some umbrage with that. I think most voters do take time to educate themselves. Now, on the down ballot on a presidential year, it's a little bit more difficult for them, but I know a lot of voters who keep that stack of mail that they get, or they keep the newspaper and they go in and they vote based upon what they read in the paper or see on ABC 7 at the trapezoid.
And even to this fall vote, if you look at the percentage winning by all the Republican candidates, Donald Trump had the lowest winning percentage. You know, we had hospital board candidates that won by 13,000 to 15,000 votes. You know, we had Charter Review, the county commission races. So it was interesting. You can tell the voters were looking at the issues and the candidates because local candidates got a higher percentage. And the normal fall off, you know, there were 233,000 votes in November. Every local candidate from Charter Review on up got over, you know, it was 200,000 votes for each of those people. And even the judicial and the 4 amendments, those votes all got 185,000. So from 233 to 185 for all the way down to the amendments and the judges, that's not the normal fall off. So the voters were looking at issues this year.
I would push back a little bit against that, because I think this year, especially in the south part of our county, it was more party-based than issue-based. For example, the hospital board candidates on the Democratic side said, hey, Northport voters, we support a Northport hospital. Your opponents don't. And yet the Democrats still lost that because people went down the party and voted a party line and not on the issues.
And that, you and I have had the same discussion. Every single one of the 5 candidates came out in every questionnaire asked, supporting additional facilities and support Northport.
But now
and
we
Venice.
have a 2 Venice hospitals and no Northport hospitals. So the Northport voters' voices are not being heard, and the Democratic Party's coming for those votes.
All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, along with what some of our viewers are saying about Obamacare enrollment. Can there really be nonpartisan elections in our polarized political climate? Our guests join us now for final thoughts on the matter. I think you both agree that all races are basically partisan, no matter whether or not technically they're nonpartisan. But the question I want to ask you in our final moments is, should there be truly nonpartisan races or not? Jack, I'll start with you.
I would say get rid of the nonpartisan races and let the best candidates with the parties for the issues, let the voters pick those folks to be the winners.
I think the voters would say, and the party as a spokesman for the voters would say, that the issues matter more. But the party is here to help those people that don't know who the candidates are, to give them some outline of what they stand for. But again, the issues should matter more.
And we agree on that. The issues do matter.
But what is also interesting here is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there are more independents in Florida right now than members of either the Republican or Democratic Party.
Well, it's certainly growing. The number's growing. I don't know what the breakdown exactly is, but it's a significant number.
It's a significant number. It's sort of the statewide like it is here in Sarasota County. It's number 3, but it's the fastest growing.
And you can't make generalizations about which way independents go. So the question is, do those independents need some kind of guide wire in terms of where they're going on these nonpartisan races?
Absolutely. I think a lot of voters ask for the information so that they can make the best judgment for which candidate to vote for.
We'll give you the last word.
Well, the Democrats stand for values, and hopefully we do a good job of educating the voters what those values are. And because of those values, the voters will stand with the Democratic Party.
In likeliness, will anything be changing, at least in Sarasota County, on this issue if it has to go to the Charter Review Board?
Not anytime in the foreseeable future.
I'd love to have constitutional officers elected without a party affiliation on the ballot.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of you are saying about Obamacare. You have until midnight tonight to sign up through the Federal Exchange if you want coverage to begin on January 1st. More than 875,000 Floridians have signed up over the past month, more than in any other state, with premiums increasing an average of 22% a year. Taxpayers will have to pay for the nearly $10 billion in subsidies. We asked you what you thought about Obamacare. Darren Farrell writes, "Got an awesome policy and a great tax credit. Hashtag thanks Obama." Leslie Brooks responds by saying, "At my expense. Thanks Obama." And Liz Ross writes, "It was great last year, and thank God I had it for all my medical health issues. But I had this year, I am a single mom and couldn't work for 6+ months. Now they think I can afford $486 a month with a $7,900 deductible." If you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, want to watch past Roundtable discussions? They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to our guests for being here tonight. Kevin Griffith is the Vice Chair of the Sarasota County Democratic Party, and Jack Brill is the Vice Chair of the Republican Party of Sarasota County.